According to some religions, the underworld is where your soul goes after you leave the earth, a home for the dead, whereas earth is known as home for the living. Usually located beneath the earth, the underworld is prevalent in Greek mythology specifically, and is also believed to be home to some of the most unpleasant, godly creatures no one would ever want to lay their eyes on. Today we'll be talking about one of those godly creatures, the Cerebus, the guard dog of the underworld, ensuring those who have made their way to the depths of the underworld stay there for good, and any living being never finds their way past him. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Life's Biggest Questions. I'll be your host, Jared Bronstein, and before we go any further, make sure to subscribe, click that bell icon to be notified when we post our newest videos, and share this one with a friend you think may enjoy it. What if Cerebus was real? Interestingly enough, Cerebus' existence wouldn't mean the end of human civilization as we know it. Cerebus wouldn't roam the earth and destroy everything and everyone, nor would he bring hell to earth. No, that's simply not the way this one goes. Cerebus is the god dog of the underworld, and that's quite literally his purpose. But when you hear guard dog, you probably think of a Rottweiler, Pitbull, German Shepherd maybe, you know, the classic guard dogs. Unfortunately, that isn't what should come to mind when you hear Cerebus, who is usually described as a large, three-headed dog of sorts, although other claims say he has as many as 100 heads. More specifically, the 100-head version of Cerebus was the original, and as the years went on, writers gave Cerebus 3 heads, while some even gave him 1. Another chilling detail is that Cerebus is described to have a snake head for a tail, or possibly multiple snake heads protruding from his body. Either way, this is not the kind of beast you would want to run into, dead or alive. Now, of course, if you were to run into Cerebus, that would mean one of two things, both quite unfortunate for you. Either you're dead, which I'm sorry to tell you, but for whatever reason you've been placed in the depths of the underworld, or you're alive, yet somehow you still found your way to the underworld, which I'm not so sure is a place you'd want to go. Either way, the fact that Cerebus was real inevitably means that the underworld is also real. This would confirm the ideology that spirits, ghosts, or souls do in fact exist. Although the majority of religions have a widespread belief that your spirit will live on, either through another being or quite possibly a ghost version of your previous self, scientifically this has yet to be proven. However, with the confirmation both Cerebus and the underworld do exist, well, that would change life as we know it. Although it seemed impossible to study, considering how it should only be available to the dead, we'd still try to learn as much about it as we possibly could. The confirmation that the underworld exists may also change the way people live their lives all over the world. Given that there are countless religions and beliefs out there, with billions of people all over the world following the strict guidelines of specific religions, some are more conservative than others, and some don't believe in any religion at all. But with the newfound discovery of the underworld and what lies beneath us, I strongly believe everyone all over the world would be much more committed to their religious beliefs. Personally, I'm not a very religious guy myself. I don't believe in all that much. However, if I was told and it was proven that the underworld does exist, well, I'd definitely start strengthening my beliefs in said religion. And I feel the same would go for anyone who either doesn't believe in anything at all or don't practice their religion often. Simply out of fear of ending up in the underworld and knowing the only way to get out would be to somehow get past the guardian of its gates, Cerebus, would be enough to get me reading the Bible on a daily basis. Of course, this revelation would also most likely confirm the existence of all the Greek gods, which would have an impact like no other. We recently did a video on Poseidon where I touched on not only his existence, but the existence of a handful of other Greek gods as well. Be sure to check that out for an in-depth explanation of what would happen if they did indeed rule our world. And to wrap this one up, if Cerebus was real, the watchful eye of the gates of the underworld would certainly inspire the population of the world to become more faithful. Whether that means majority of the world starts to follow Greek mythology and pray to their gods, or simply go further into their own beliefs, it seems Cerebus would strike fear into the hearts of all those currently living.
There are plenty of terrifying beings in the Magic the Gathering universe, but maybe none so awful and mind-rending as the Eldrazi. These multi-dimensional Lovecraftian beings exist to corrupt and destroy, and ever since they were locked away on Zendikar by the Three, nobody has been able to beat them in a decisive manner. Okay, sure, in the battle for Zendikar, 2 Eldrazi were defeated in physical form, but we'll get there in a second. Let's get started. If you haven't seen our video on Emrakul, then you might not know what the Eldrazi are. You can go check that out now if you want a more in-depth version. In 20 words or less, they are ancient beings native to the Blind Eternities, a place outside of physical space. They exist to consume, corrupt, and destroy. Okay, I think that was exactly 20 words. So the Eldrazi, being cosmic horrors, basically drain worlds of all their mana and energy and then move on to the next. The 3 Eldrazi titans are the most powerful and have control over the rest of the Eldrazi brood. There is Emrakul, the Aeon's Torn, the Titan of Corruption. Then there's Kozilek, the Butcher of Truth, the Titan of Distortion. And finally, the subject of today's video, Ulamog, Infinite Gyre, the Titan of Consumption. Of the 3 titans, Ulamog is the smallest. This does not mean that it's the least dangerous or the weakest though. And even if it did, the weakest Eldrazi titan has enough power to tear entire worlds apart. Ulamog and all of its brood have heads that resemble bony helmets but lack eyes or expressions. It is still unknown how Ulamog navigates, as there do not appear to be any sort of sensory organs anywhere on its form. Most of its body consists of exposed muscle and is covered with bony plates. Moving around on a writhing mass of tentacles, Ulamog is also studded with bony spikes below the torso. These appendages twist and undulate beneath its form, carrying it wherever it needs to go. To add even more limbs to the equation, Ulamog also has 2 arms that split into 4 more at the elbow. The stench of rotten meat, decay, and sulfur surrounds it constantly, leading to another name being attributed to this Eldrazi, the Reeking Titan. Fitting, don't you think? As the Titan of Consumption, Ulamog and its brood consume living and unliving matter alike. Its processors transform the consumed energy into spell-like effects that defy all understanding. Plagues are created, deadly parasites are brought forth, and endlessly teeming spawn cover the earth. These beings drain all of the energy from everything they come in contact with, leaving behind distinctive white, chalky, lattice-like structures in their wake. This lattice structure is typical of Eldrazi destruction. Everything, even water, is transformed into a white, manaless husk of what it once was. Even water. Imagine that, a husk of water. Before Ulamog, I just thought that a husk meant something that was totally waterless, but now it goes even deeper. My brain can't keep up. Ulamog is emblematic of plague, the blind bonds between parasite and host, and overabundance. It is creation and destruction wrapped together in unholy matrimony. One might be even so bold as to compare Ulamog's ceaseless hunger and subsequent creation of consumers to those same traits in humanity. Don't think too hard or you might want to leave the planet. So what if Ulamog was real? What if the ceaseless hunger popped in for a visit on our dear sweet planet Earth? Well, we'd be screwed, that's what would happen. Each of the Eldrazi titans can spawn its own lineage, armies of children to perform various tasks on the way to the total annihilation of a world. These little gaffers are weaker than the actual titans, but share many characteristics with their progenitors. Ulamog's brood tends to be dense masses of fleshy tentacles, just like their daddy. They have limbs that split at the elbow, as well as the iconic eyeless, bony plates for faces. No skin, exposing their muscle and bone as well. These Eldrazitas exist just to consume the land as quickly and efficiently as possible, with no semblance of subtlety. There are plenty of different varieties of these broodlings as well, ranging from food for the bigger boys, to fighters, to things meant to cull all living beings who may oppose the unstoppable spread of pestilence. There are even variations known as the Fathom Feeders, who are specialized in infiltrating the deep seas. Once they get going, there is no avoiding them. All of these spawn give Zendikar little to no chance of survival, so what makes you think that Earth would be any hardier? We don't even have planeswalkers to call upon when times get tough, at least none that I know of. So when Ulamog manifests itself on Earth, we are in for a bad time. Ulamog itself would undulate through densely populated areas, sending its tiny minions to cull, kill, eviscerate, and drain the life force of anything that moves or doesn't move. Even as humans begin to adapt, as they so often do, things like disease and plague would spread as well. Parasites like the Dominator drone would attach themselves to living hosts and use those hosts to wreak havoc among the unafflicted. Mana and vital energy would be drained, and white shells would be left behind, devoid of anything that might constitute energy. Overconsumption would take on a whole new meaning as humans watched everything around them crumble. The overwhelming stink of it all wouldn't help either. It would be difficult to fight back against the ceaseless hunger, as the very resources required to fight back would be consumed right before our very eyes. Water, food, fuel, minerals, all drained of their attributes that make them useful. We would be left with a barren wasteland where nothing could possibly live or grow. Even our greatest weapons, like nuclear warheads, would be rendered useless, as Ulamog and its brood would just sap the vast energy from those too. It would be a difficult fight to win, for sure. The fight for Zendikar and the magic canon involved the apparent deaths of not only one, but 2 Eldrazi though, so why don't we look to that story for some help. Ulamog ended up being the only Titan on Zendikar for a couple years after Emrakul and Kozilek vanished. After inadvertently creating a race of vampires, Ulamog rose up to blight and ravage the planet. Eventually some planeswalkers decided to step in and come with a plan, and it almost worked. Unfortunately, Ob Nixilis interfered and allowed Kozilek to jump back into the fray before Gideon Jura could lay a finishing blow on Ulamog. Then everyone had to fight 2 Eldrazi, and somehow they came up with a last-ditch plan to take him down, and it worked. No important casualties, just red shirts. Isn't it nice when things just work out? They didn't even need to use colorless magic to do it. So yeah, if Ulamog was real, all we would ever really need to do is let Deus Ex Machina take over and we'd be good to go. God from the machine, baby. Who needs a well thought out conclusion when we can just wish it away? Although the consequences for taking down an Eldrazi in physical form may be yet unrealized. Who knows if they still have parts of themselves in other dimensions or back in the blind eternities? Can an Eldrazi really die? Maybe someday we'll find out. But for now, we can all definitely agree that if Ulamog was indeed real, it would be a very bad thing. We would have our life forces drained before breakfast, unfortunately. Dang.
Ancalagon the Black is described as one of the most powerful dragons to ever be. The fire he could breathe was hotter than that of any other dragon. So hot, in fact, Gandalf briefly tells Frodo there was a myth that this dragon's fire was so hot it could destroy the One Ring. However, it turned out that was not true. In regards to size, well, this dragon was known to be the largest. We're talking larger than mountains. Colossal wouldn't be doing it much justice. This thing is unearthly. What if Ancalagon was real? Also referred to as Ancalagon the Black, Rushing Jaws, or the mightiest dragon, we should all be grateful this thing is fictional. Popular belief tends to have dragons living in castles surrounded by lava. Now, as far as I'm concerned, there are no castles surrounded by lava anywhere in the world. There is, however, a place called the Ring of Fire, which borders the west coast of North and South America, the east coast of Asia, while cutting through Japan and Indonesia, as well as the Philippines. Australia is quite close, but is fortunate enough that the Ring of Fire treads around their country, trailing into the Pacific Ocean. Now, if you're watching this thinking, what the hell is the Ring of Fire? It's an area that is home to the most volcanoes in the world. More specifically, a total of 452 volcanoes spread across the path that is known as the Ring of Fire. Due to the fact that Ancalagon is probably the size of Russia, as much as I wish I could say it would live in a country near the Ring of Fire, well, that wouldn't make much sense. Instead, he would simply reside in multiple countries, considering how his size would tower over literally anything. More specifically, Ancalagon would most likely live where the most volcanoes are, which would be around the Philippines. Now, unfortunately, it seems Ancalagon's exact size is up for interpretation. Some claim he was larger than some of the world's biggest mountains, while others claim he was large but not larger than life. So when I say he'd be the size of Russia, I'm joking, but I really don't know exactly how large this thing would be. In comparison to humans, well, I think it's safe to say we'd be even smaller than an ant or a pebble. And unfortunately, due to the fact this dragon would be so large, he'd literally crush countries just by flying by them. I don't think we'd last very long. Another important note is that wherever this thing flies, lightning and fire come raining down from the sky. So if his sheer size and dominance didn't destroy anyone and everything, well, the natural weather he brings with him simply would. So if Ancalagon was real, well, I think you guys could figure out what would happen. The human race and the majority of anything living on Earth would die. There would be no way to combat what was made to be the last resort for Morgoth when his fortress was under attack. He is equivalent to our nuke. If all else fails, we would resort to chemical warfare. In the case of Morgoth and defended his own, Ancalagon was created to assist in just that. So if he was real, well, the Earth simply wouldn't stand a chance. We'd inevitably all die a horrible death, and there wouldn't be anywhere to hide from this terrifying creature. I wish we could spin this one some other way that we'd take this thing down, but truth be told, even if we launched every nuke at this thing, it wouldn't do much damage at all. Aside from, of course, destroying the entire Earth from the toxic radiation and whatnot, but we wouldn't even get that far in our fight against this beast. So to summarize, what if Ancalagon was real? He'd destroy the entire Earth and everything and everyone on it. There would be absolutely no way of stopping this thing, and even those that are somehow able to escape via spaceships in hopes of coming back to Earth after this thing is finished with its reign of terror would probably be struck down by the falling fire and thunder that would consume the entire planet. Nothing good would come from Ancalagon being real, and that's why we should all be grateful he's simply a fictional dragon that was tasked with defending a fortress.
Today, we are diving into the world of H.P. Lovecraft. In particular, we're going to be focusing on the blind idiot god, the nuclear chaos, the lord of all things and the master of all creation and destruction, Azathoth. Hey everyone, what's up and welcome back to Life's Biggest Questions. The voice you are currently listening today belongs to me, Lindsay Ivan, your voice of reason for today's video, which is what if Azathoth existed today? Now, the first recorded mention of Azathoth was in a note Lovecraft wrote to himself in 1919. It read, Azathoth, hideous name. Wow, very inspiring. Azathoth officially first appeared in the 1922 unfinished short story titled, well, Azathoth. From there, he went on to be mentioned and appeared in multiple other Lovecraft stories. The most notable one would probably be The Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath. Now, Azathoth is quite terrifying. In fact, there's no definitive description of him. Everybody imagines him differently. He can look like anything and everything. And his description and appearance is always changing. In the 1931 novel, The Whisperer in Darkness, he's referred to as the monstrous nuclear chaos beyond angled space. Nuclear referring to the nucleus of the cosmos. So interpretations of this state that he is a mass that can be found outside of the universe. Now, what happens if Azathoth existed today? Well, life as we know it would be changed forever. Azathoth is the Lord of all things. It is said that he is the creator of all things in the universe, but he simply does not know it. In fact, he is fast asleep. That's right. What's so scary about a dude that's just sleeping the whole time? Well, our life depends upon this. He is dreaming up our world and our reality. If he wakes up, we would all be gone. He is super powerful. He literally has created life as we know it, but he is completely blind to this fact since he's sleeping. So we only exist in Azathoth's dreams, meaning that if he existed today, all it takes is him to wake up and we would all be gone. I mean, okay, that's not so bad. We would be gone pretty fast. It wouldn't be a painful experience at all. But still, I'd rather that not happen. Now, no need to worry. To ensure he is never woken up, he is constantly surrounded by alien servants that keep him asleep by their sounds of pipes and drums. But we're basically screwed if he ever wakes up from his deep slumber. We would be gone in an instant. Now, I feel like if us mortals knew about his existence, then this would cause mass fear and hysteria. People would know that any day he could just wake up and we would all be wiped out. As a result, the crime rate may increase with people thinking that they can do whatever they want and just blame it on Azathoth, saying, well, he dreamt of me doing it. Which is a really trippy concept when you think about it, like he created us, but he's not controlling every single one of us. Or is he? Anyways, there would just be so much panic. People would wake up every day wondering if it would be their last. But maybe in a weird, twisted way, this would be good for us. It would teach us to value everything that we have and the time that we have. We wouldn't take things for granted and maybe would try and do something new each day, maybe even be more adventurous, because we wouldn't know when our life would be cut short. Moving on, if Azathoth existed, of course, you would have the researchers out there that would try to find ways to permanently sedate Azathoth to really ensure that he never wakes up. Don't know how this would be possible, but I'm sure people would try anyways. But I could see the attempts backfiring badly. Then you would probably have those people that are so fascinated by him and they become die-hard fans. You'll probably see several Azathoth cults where they worship him and make sacrifices on his behalf. Again, are we really in control of what we do, or is Azathoth controlling our every move as well? In that case, he would be dreaming about people making a cult about him. It's such a trippy concept. And of course, you'll probably have some sort of doomsday cult with members that will deliberately try to wake up this sleeping creature so that they could end life. You'll have people fighting back against them, ensuring that they don't do this, which could result in violent outbreaks. Now, on a more lighter note, if Azathoth existed and he never woke up from his sleep, then we may just never be affected by him. We would be able to live our lives normally. I mean, he is so uninvolved and unaware of the role he plays in our existence. He doesn't consciously manipulate our universe and force bad things to happen to us. So potentially we would be safe and just live a normal life. But here's a much darker theory. Other people claim that when he shifts and moves in his sleep, this has the power to wipe out galaxies completely. So basically, we would be living in such an unpredictable world. Just a little shift in his sleep and it could completely disrupt our universe. He completely interferes with the laws of physics, meaning our world could face significant and unpredictable changes even if he never woke up. So, to recap, let's hope that Azathoth never comes into existence, because the outcome would not be good. We would be living in a very unpredictable, anxiety-filled world. This dude has the power to destroy us in a second, and he doesn't even know it. Life as we know it, your family, friends, history, everything would be gone in a matter of seconds.
Cosmic horror. The stuff of legend, the terror you could never hope to understand. Formless, shapeless, ageless, these are the beasts that cannot be stopped, cannot even be slowed. In fact, they can't even be effectively compared to anything other than other cosmic creatures. Such is the life of a Lovecraftian atrocity. And of course, what could be scarier than a monster that knows everything that you could never hope to know anything about? What if Yogsathoth was alive today? We've discussed the implications of him existing in the past, and now we're trying to figure out what kind of impact he would make floating about in 2020. The consequences would indeed be heavy. If you're unfamiliar with Yogsathoth, fret not, I'll do my best to get you up to speed as soon as possible. Born of the nameless mist, he is a cosmic entity and outer god. He exists far outside the confines of Earth and the solar system, even thought of as being outside the universe itself. Any influence felt from Yogsathoth is coming from way far off, and any instance folks lay eyes upon is only a small representation of the true being. As such, he tends to appear in many different ways. Depending on the author depicting this entity, he can appear as a mass of glowing orbs, a tentacle-covered atrocity, a clump of eyes and other fleshy bits, and more. Again, all of these could be correct depictions, representations of different parts of Yogsathoth manifesting in various parts of the universe. On the topic of the universe, you should probably also know that Yogsathoth can see all of it, all the time, for all eternity. All at once. There's no hiding secrets from him, so don't even try. A quote from the Dunwich Horror, a story where Yogsathoth plays a major role, reads, "Yogsathoth knows the gate. Yogsathoth is the gate. Yogsathoth is the key and the guardian of the gate. Past, present, future, all are one in Yogsathoth. He knows where the old ones broke through of old, and where they shall break through again. He knows where they have trod Earth's fields, and where they still tread them, and why no one can behold them as they tread. If it's happened, or will happen, you can count on Yogsathoth knowing all about it. Even old ones can't escape his all-seeing eyes. Seeing all this stuff provides Mistress Azathoth with plenty of knowledge, and he isn't too shy about sharing it. You would think an outer god might be above providing us lowly humans with information, but you'd be wrong. If you know the right incantations and rituals and other assorted rites, it's possible to summon him. Doing so can result in a lot of different things. Some folks want assistance in performing occult deeds or rituals, like resurrecting folks from the dead. Others want to bring forth additional monstrosities into the world through the impregnation of human females with cosmic beings. If you've read the Dunwich Horror, you'll recognize that move. Some people reach out to Yagi just to learn forbidden secrets of the universe. However, as we are insignificant primitive beings, the knowledge gained in these exchanges is probably not good. Most mortals are driven mad by Yogsathoth's presence, and those with enough fortitude to withstand that will be likely sent to the loony bin by whatever knowledge is imparted. If by some miracle the scholar of the dark arts can withstand all of the above, then they can use it to cause disaster. Because what else would you do with cosmic knowledge? Build a hospital? Give to charity? Solve world hunger? No. Destruction and the flaying of minds. Of course, acquiring knowledge like this means that you've got to make some sacrifices, like your ever-living soul or a whole bunch of human lives. You know the deal. So now we have an abridged version of the general shape of knowledge surrounding Yogsathoth. All-knowing, outside our universe, willing to share some forbidden knowledge in exchange for a few cracked eggs, progenitor of Cthulhu, Hastur, Wilbur Whately. Very nice. But what if Yogchamp was alive today? What would happen if the lurker at the threshold spent some time in our mortal realm? Well, a whole lot of chaos would unfold, that's for sure. If we look to the Dunwich Horror for an example of what could happen, it becomes apparent that all sorts of antisocial folks are born from him. Wilbur Whately appears human at first, but grows much faster than any other human. He also appears to have no problem sacrificing family members and is actively looking to bring forth some cosmic terrors through the door. Not necessarily the kind of person you want walking around in the waking civilized world. His brother, the thing in the barn, is more akin to a cosmic terror than Wilbur. Fed entire cows every day for months and growing to the size of a farmhouse, if left unchecked, this thing could have raised Dunwich in no time. Thankfully, some well-read and well-prepared scholars were there to stop it. One of the creature-fighting crew goes into shock while pursuing it, but they still get the job done. Nice. Good work, team. But the story took place in and around 1928. It was a lot easier to cover up stories back then, and information wasn't as readily available. If Yogsathoth was around these days pulling stunts like this, we'd be in for a lot of trouble. Firstly, a giant barn-sized creature would not go unnoticed. Somebody would snap a pic or record some video, and soon the whole world would be at attention. Some would try to debunk it, but others would be interested in the origins of such a creature. And off they would go, trying to find a way to summon a creature of their very own. It's likely they would succeed too. Wilbur would have likely taken his search for a Necronomicon to the internet, letting all sorts of interested folk know about the process itself. And seeing that Yogsathoth exists everywhere all at once, he would be able to accommodate all sorts of lunatics and occultists performing rituals and seeking forbidden knowledge. Soon enough, we'd be seeing a massive uptick in human sacrifice, minds being torn asunder, and barn-sized beasts rolling through small towns. Small towns would just be the beginning too. There aren't enough responsible scholars out there these days to take care of so many monstrosities. And even if they were, would they be well equipped enough? What would likely happen then is a massive conflict between Lovecraft-inspired lunatics and folks just trying to uphold the fabric of reality. Yogsathoth would continue to present effective ritualists with cosmic weapons while the whole world trembled. Eventually other old ones would be summoned through the door, and the world would become a much slimier, more tentacly place. It's hard to predict what would happen next. Mass hysteria, widespread madness, the end of every recognizable thing on Earth? Who would be around to judge? What a world. And that about sums it up. If Yogsathoth was around today, word would get around quickly. All sorts of Dunwich horrors would crop up and the folks would pretty much go mad across the board. Then the world would be forever altered. Good luck to everyone out there.
He is the bane of Link's existence. The hero of time wants to save the world and get the girl, but he's going to have to go through one of the most powerful and famous Nintendo villains of all time. I'm your host, Chadarena, and on today's Life's Biggest Questions, we are going to dig into what the world would look like if Ganon was real. So pull your sword out of the stone, grab your ocarina, pack your bombs, make sure you have enough arrows, shapeshift into a wolf, and fall asleep and dream about a big fish, and watch the Goron dance to a hot beat, because we're about to get into it. As is tradition here at Life's Biggest Questions, we are going to start the video by giving you a quick breakdown of who Ganon is. Now, the Zelda timeline is about as easy to follow as a David Lynch movie, but I'm going to do my best to give you the general idea of what went down. Let's go all the way back to before Ganon was created. Prior to the beast walking the earth, there was Demise, the Demon King. This dude was the source of everything evil in the world, so it's safe to say he was pretty evil. He wants to get his hands on the Triforce, which is the power of the goddesses and would make him extremely powerful. He kidnaps Zelda, which sends Link, the hero of time, after him, and then Link defeats him and traps his soul in the Master Sword, but not before Demise curses Link and Zelda. No matter where they appear throughout time, there will always be evil that follows them. His hatred is now cursed towards them. That was Skyward Sword. Now let's cut to the Ocarina of Time. This would be the first appearance of the beast that would be later known as Ganon in the Zelda timeline. He comes as a man named Ganondorf, and he also wants the power of the Triforce. He tricks Link and the King of Hyrule, kidnaps Zelda, rules Hyrule for 7 years spreading darkness. Link arrives, fights Ganondorf, who then reveals his true form as Ganon, which is a massive monster that resembles a boar with huge tusks, and then Link defeats Ganon, saving the princess. Then the timeline splits. In both versions, Link fights Ganon and then defeats him. Big surprise. But it's also revealed that Ganon possesses one of the 3 corners of the Triforce. Oh no. Ganon has the power section of the Triforce, while the wisdom section is with Zelda, and the courage section is with Link. This forever binds the 3 together. Through a bunch of other games, the same thing happens again and again. Ganon returns, either as Ganondorf or as a horrible creature known as Ganon. He takes the princess, Link fights him and wins, rinse, wash, repeat. We don't really play the Zelda games for the story, although they are good, it's more about the gameplay. There's a few variations on this, with different villains coming in and out, but it sticks mostly to the same wheelhouse. Let's get into some of the finer details of Ganon's character. There has been more than one iteration of the game where Ganon has had some sort of evil general working under him. He has also hoodwinked the King of Hyrule to let him get close to the princess. He is a master of manipulation, able to get very powerful people to work under him. And if you hadn't realized already, he has the power to shapeshift. He can change from his beast form into his human form. He is also the keeper of the power section of the Triforce, which gives him immense levels of power. He is able to spread darkness across the world by sending out evil monsters that will take over everywhere, which he can control. He is also virtually unkillable unless the hero of time is the one to come and kill him. He has access to dark magic and can use it in a multitude of ways. From putting curses on people, to energy blasts, to flying, generating weapons, teleporting, health regeneration, and the ability to possess people and weapons, like when he possessed Princess Zelda in Twilight Princess, and possessed all of the Guardians in Breath of the Wild. It's safe to say that this dude is extremely powerful, and unless you have the Master Sword and know how to use it, he will leave you a smoldering pile of ash. Now that you have a general idea of who this King of Darkness is, what would happen if he was real? Well, it would not be good for any of us. I will tell you that much. Ganon only wants to spread darkness, and that is exactly what he would do. We would see monsters start to pop up all over the world, and we could be in an all-out war against an enemy who uses magic. An enemy that can only be defeated by one dude. I see this either going one of two ways. We either never look for the hero of time to save us, we keep fighting Ganon, he is way too strong, and we all lose becoming slaves to the Dark Lord, and he rules Earth as our Dark Overlord. Or the other option, because there is enough nerds in the world, someone realizes that if Ganon is real, then Link and Zelda must also be real. The entire planet starts to pool their resources to try and find Link and help him on his journey. Help him find the Master Sword so he can fight Ganon and save mankind. But even if we do get the hero that we all need to save Earth, this will most likely come after a period of darkness, because in almost all of the Zelda games, Ganon rules for a while before Link is able to save the day. So no matter how this plays out, a few people are going to have to feel the dark wrath of one of Nintendo's greatest villains. Alright everyone, that is all we have for you today on Life's Biggest Questions.
Cathilla is the offspring of Cthulhu and Idya, and is possibly one of the most important beings in the Cthulhu mythos, at least according to Cthulhu. Created by Brian Lumley, Cathilla is expected to give birth to Cthulhu if it should ever be destroyed somehow, some way. Because of this, Cathilla is protected by Cthulhu's minions, ensuring his saving grace is always in a safe place out of harm's way. Appearing as a gigantic red-bodied octopus of sorts, with 6 eyes and wings, Cathilla definitely isn't the prettiest monster out there. We also can't forget to mention her 8 tentacles accompanied by tons of razor-sharp claws, each measuring at about 5 inches in length. Possibly her best feature is that Cathilla can shape her body similar to that of her father. She has the ability to enlarge her wings to help her fly, and could also add or subtract her arms, having up to as many as 12 at a time. However, being one of the newer characters in the Cthulhu mythos, Cathilla is definitely younger and not as powerful as some of the other great old ones we've previously covered. In fact, she's had her fair share of troubles. The Wilmarth Foundation launched a top-secret operation called Project X, where the main goal was to destroy Cathilla. Although the Foundation failed their attempt, using nuclear warfare, they were able to injure Cathilla, who managed to escape the attack. And as I'm sure you can imagine, upon being informed of the attack, Cthulhu got his revenge on everyone involved. Another instance of Cathilla's troubles is when she was captured by researchers thinking she was a new species of octopus. In hopes of creating other offsprings to study, the researchers artificially inseminated Cathilla, which happened in Tina L. Jen's short story In His Daughter's Darkling Womb. So unlike most of the Lovecraft-inspired or created that we've covered in the past, if Cathilla was real, she may not be as dangerous as initially thought. However, that doesn't mean her existence would mean smooth sailing for the world. Here's why. Cathilla is believed to live somewhere on Earth, in Yi, which, if I'm pronouncing it wrong, my apologies. Lovecraft seemed to have a way with creating monsters and places that are quite literally impossible to say. Not to say that's the case with the place Cathilla resides, but unfortunately I could not find much information on it, so I'm hoping for the best. Anyways, this would mean that Cathilla is in fact somewhere on Earth, or possibly below the Earth as Cthulhu is. Either way, Cathilla's existence would confirm a lot for us. It would confirm that Cthulhu is also real and living below the ocean floor, which also confirms that Cthulhu's minions and cult is also very real. I think you guys could figure out where I'm going with this one. Although it is very possible that an army would most likely be able to take down Cathilla, even if it meant using nuclear warfare, there are of course many repercussions to doing this. Aside from the fact that it would upset the great Cthulhu, who would certainly spread chaos among the world, it would also involve spreading a ton of nuclear waste. Although it may be the least of our concerns when there is a giant godly creature below the seafloor awakening to end life and human civilization as we know it, still, nukes are bad, guys. Okay. All kidding aside, if Cathilla were in fact real, as is usually the case with any Lovecraftian inspired or created monster, we'd be living in a pretty bad time. Not necessarily at the hands of Cathilla herself, but more so because her father, the great Cthulhu, would be in a death-like slumber awaiting the day to take over the earth. If you guys want a more in-depth explanation as to why Cthulhu's existence in the real world would be incredibly problematic, check out the video we did, What If Cthulhu Were Real?